Psychology & Co. presents 12 Ways How Emotionally Intelligent People Deal with Toxic People. 1. They set limits, especially with complainers. Complainers and negative people are bad news because they focus on their problems rather than finding solutions. They want others to join their self-pity party so they may feel better about themselves. People are sometimes pressed to listen to complainers because they don't want to be perceived as cynical or impolite. But there's a narrow line between offering a sympathetic ear and becoming engulfed in their negative emotional spiral. You can only avoid this by creating boundaries and separating yourself when required. Consider this. If the complainer was smoking, would you sit there all afternoon inhaling second-hand smoke? You distance yourself, and they should do the same. Asking complainers how they intend to solve the problem is a fantastic method to set limits. They will either calm down or divert the conversation to a more positive direction. 2. They don't die in the fight. Successful people understand the value of living to fight another day, even when your opponent is a toxic individual. Unchecked emotion and disagreement causes you to dig your heels in and wage a war that can leave you terribly harmed. When you can read and respond to your emotions, you can pick your conflicts intelligently and only stand your ground when the time is right. 3. They rise above. Toxic people drive you insane due to their erratic actions. Make no doubt about it. Their behavior defies logic, so why do you allow yourself to react emotionally to them and be dragged into the mix? The more illogical and off-base someone is, the easier it should be to get out of their clutches. Stop attempting to defeat them at their own game, distancing yourself emotionally from them and approaching your conversations as if they were a science project. You don't have to react to the emotional turmoil, only to the facts. 4. They stay aware of their emotions. Keeping an emotional distance requires awareness. You can't stop someone from pushing your buttons if you're not aware of it. You may find yourself in situations where you need to regroup and decide the best course of action. This is good, and you shouldn't be afraid to give yourself some breathing room. Consider this. If a mentally ill individual approaches you on the street and claims to be George Washington, you're unlikely to correct him. When you find yourself with a coworker who is also lost in thought, it's sometimes best to just smile and nod. If you're going to have to sort things out, it's important to give yourself some time to plan the best approach. 5. They establish boundaries. This is an area where most people underestimate themselves. They believe they have no influence over the chaos because they work or live with someone. Nothing could be further from the truth. Once you've discovered how to rise above a person, you'll notice that their conduct becomes more predictable and easier to comprehend. This will enable you to think clearly about when and where you must tolerate them and when you do not. For example, just because you work closely with someone on a project team doesn't imply you need to have the same level of one-on-one engagement with them as you do with other team members. You can set a barrier, but you must do so intentionally and proactively. If you let things happen naturally, you will invariably find yourself in difficult conversations. You can manage a lot of the mayhem if you create limits and select when and where you'll engage a tough person. The only secret is to stick to your guns and maintain your limits when the individual attempts to encroach on them, which they will. 6. They won't let anyone limit their joy. When you derive your sense of pleasure and satisfaction from the opinions of others, you are no longer the master of your own happiness. When emotionally intelligent people feel good about whatever they've done, they won't let others' comments or sarcastic remarks diminish that feeling. While you can't turn off your reactions to what other people think of you, you don't have to compare yourself to others, and you can always take other people's opinions with a grain of salt. That way, regardless of what toxic people believe or do, your self-worth originates from within. Whatever people think of you at any given time, one thing is certain: you are never as good or horrible as they say you are. 7. They don't focus on problems, only solutions. Your emotional state is determined by where you direct your attention. When you focus on your difficulties, you develop and prolong negative emotions and stress. When you concentrate on actions to improve yourself and your situation, you develop a sense of personal efficacy, which promotes positive emotions and reduces stress. When it comes to toxic people, focusing on how wild and tough they are empowers them. Stop worrying about how difficult your toxic individual is and start thinking about how you're going to deal with them. This increases your effectiveness by placing you in charge, and it reduces the amount of tension you feel when engaging with them. 8. They don't forget. People that are emotionally intelligent forgive quickly, but they do not forget. Forgiveness requires letting go of the past in order to move forward. It does not imply that you will give a wrongdoer another opportunity. Successful people do not want to be burdened down by the faults of others, so they let them go quickly and are forceful in protecting themselves from future harm. 9. They squash negative self-talk. You can sometimes absorb the negativity of others. There's nothing wrong with feeling horrible about how someone treats you, but your self-talk, the beliefs you have about your feelings, can either amplify or alleviate the negative. Negative self-talk is unreasonable, needless, and counterproductive. It throws you into a downward emotional spiral that is tough to break. Negative self-talk should be avoided at all costs. 10. They limit their caffeine intake. Caffeine stimulates the release of adrenaline. Adrenaline is the cause of the fight or flight reaction, a survival mechanism that urges you to fight or flee when confronted with a threat. The fight or flight reflex bypasses rational thought in favor of a faster response. This is wonderful when a bear is after you, but not so well when you're confronted in the corridor by an angry coworker. 11. They get some sleep. I can't emphasize enough how important sleep is for boosting emotional intelligence and controlling stress levels. When you sleep, your brain literally recharges, going over the day's memories and storing or discarding them so you wake up alert and clear-headed. When you don't get enough or the correct kind of sleep, your self-control, attentiveness, and memory all suffer. Even in the absence of a stressor, sleep loss elevates stress hormone levels. A good night's sleep makes you more cheerful, creative, and proactive when dealing with toxic people, providing you the perspective you need to deal with them efficiently. 12. They use their support system. It's tempting, but completely unproductive, to try to handle everything on your own. To deal with toxic people, you must first understand your own shortcomings. This entails reaching out to your support network in order to gain perspective on a difficult person. Everyone has someone on their team at work and or outside of work who is rooting for them and willing to assist them in making the best of a difficult circumstance. Identify these people in your life and make an effort to seek their advice and support when needed. Something as easy as clarifying the problem can result in a different point of view. Because they're not as emotionally invested in the situation, other people can often see a solution that you cannot, bringing it all together. Before you can get this system to perform flawlessly, you must first pass various tests. Most of the time, you'll be put to the test by difficult interactions with difficult people. Fortunately, the brain's plasticity allows it to shape and change as you try new habits, even when you fail. Implementing these stress-relieving tactics for coping with toxic people will train your brain to handle stress more effectively and reduce the risk of negative consequences.